What if The Matrix was never meant to be just a movie? What if one of the most influential films ever made was actually hiding something in plain sight? Not a secret message, not an Easter egg, something much bigger. For more than 2 decades, audiences around the world have treated The Matrix as a groundbreaking science fiction masterpiece, a revolutionary action film, a technological milestone, a philosophical journey. But the deeper researchers, film historians, and obsessive fans have dug into its production, the stranger the story becomes. Because behind the iconic green code, behind the black trench coats, behind the bullets frozen in midair, lies a collection of mysteries, coincidences, creative decisions, and hidden inspirations that continue to fuel debate to this day. Why did the film emerge at exactly the moment the world was entering the digital age? Why did so many of its themes seem to predict questions that society would only begin seriously discussing years later? How did an ambitious script from 2 relatively unknown filmmakers become one of the most culturally disruptive movies in cinematic history? And perhaps most importantly, why do so many people walk away from The Matrix feeling as if they watched more than a film? The official story is familiar. A visionary project, a talented cast, a risky production, a surprise box office success. But as we started opening the archives, examining production notes, studying interviews, tracing the origins of its symbolism, and connecting overlooked details from the set, a different picture began to emerge. A picture filled with hidden influences, discarded concepts, production battles, philosophical puzzles, and creative choices that almost changed the entire movie. Some of the discoveries are fascinating, others are difficult to explain, and a few raise questions that Hollywood has never fully answered. Tonight, we're not revisiting The Matrix's fans. We're reopening the case file. We're going beyond the official narrative and investigating the forbidden production history of a film that didn't just entertain millions. It altered the way an entire generation thought about reality itself. And the first clue appears long before Neo ever takes the red pill. But before we unlock the first layer of this investigation, I want to ask you something. Have you ever watched The Matrix and felt that strange sensation that it was talking about something far beyond science fiction? As if, beneath the action and special effects, there was a deeper message waiting to be decoded? If you've ever felt that, let me know in the comments below. I genuinely want to know when you first started questioning what this film was really trying to say. And if you enjoy deep investigations into hidden movie histories, lost production secrets, forbidden files, unexplained mysteries, and the stories Hollywood rarely talks about, take a moment to support this investigation. Leave a like on this video. It may seem like a small action, but it helps these hidden stories reach more people who are searching for answers beyond the official narrative. And if you're new to Shadow Reel, subscribe and join us as we continue opening classified cinematic case files, uncovering the secrets buried beneath some of the most influential films ever made. Because tonight's investigation goes much deeper than most people realize. The deeper we dug into The Matrix, the more we discovered that its origins were anything but ordinary. And the first clue begins years before cameras ever started rolling. Most people believe The Matrix started as a brilliant screenplay that somehow found its way into Hollywood. But the deeper you investigate the origins of this film, the harder it becomes to accept that explanation as the whole story. Because what eventually became The Matrix wasn't born from a single idea. It emerged from a convergence of influences, philosophies, obsessions, and questions that had been haunting its creators long before Neo ever opened his computer screen. As we reopen the archive, one detail immediately stood out. The creators of The Matrix weren't simply trying to make an action movie. They were fascinated by questions that most films avoid entirely. Questions about reality, consciousness, free will, control, the nature of perception itself. The kind of questions that keep people awake at night staring into the darkness, wondering whether the world they experience is truly what it appears to be. This is where the investigation starts becoming interesting. Long before audiences were introduced to red pills and simulated worlds, the seeds of the Matrix were already taking shape through a mixture of cyberpunk literature, philosophical inquiry, ancient spiritual symbolism, and growing anxieties about humanity's relationship with technology. During the 1990s, society was moving rapidly toward a digital future. The internet was expanding. Computers were becoming part of everyday life. For the first time, millions of people were beginning to spend significant portions of their lives inside virtual spaces. And somewhere in the middle of that transformation, a dangerous question emerged. If technology can shape what we see, hear, and believe, how do we know what is real? That question became the hidden code running beneath everything the Matrix would eventually become. The more we examined early concepts and creative influences, the more it felt like the film was operating on multiple layers at once. On the surface, it was a science fiction thriller. Beneath that, it was a philosophical puzzle. Beneath that, a symbolic investigation into awakening, illusion, and human perception. And beneath even that, something harder to define. A feeling, a suspicion, the same feeling many people experience when they first hear Morpheus describe a prison that cannot be seen, touched, or tasted. Because what made the Matrix different wasn't the technology. It was the question hiding behind the technology. What if the system isn't just around you? What if it's inside the way you think? And perhaps that's why the concept spread so powerfully across popular culture. It wasn't selling audiences a fantasy. It was giving shape to doubts they already carried within themselves. As the project evolved, the creators continued collecting influences from unexpected places, building a narrative unlike anything Hollywood had seen before. But the closer the script moved toward reality, the more impossible the entire production began to seem. And when the project finally arrived in Hollywood, almost nobody believed it could ever be made. If this hidden origin story resonates with you, comment the word "awaken" below, because the next file in this investigation reveals how one of the most ambitious scripts ever written nearly disappeared before reaching the screen. And when the project finally arrived in Hollywood, almost nobody believed it could ever be made. The creators of The Matrix, sisters Lana Wachowski and Lily Wachowski, even presented hundreds of pages of storyboards to demonstrate that their visual vision was feasible. Looking back today, after The Matrix became one of the most influential films in cinematic history, it almost feels impossible to imagine that this revolutionary masterpiece was once considered too strange, too complex, and too risky for the system it was trying to expose. But that is exactly what happened. The script that would later redefine science fiction arrived in Hollywood carrying ideas that executives had rarely seen combined in a single film. It wasn't just a futuristic story about machines. It was an ambitious collision of cyberpunk mythology, philosophical debate, martial arts cinema, comic book aesthetics, religious symbolism, and a visual language that did not yet exist in mainstream filmmaking. The deeper we investigated the production files, the clearer the conflict became. The people who controlled the industry were looking at a project that required an enormous budget and demanded complete faith in a vision that could barely be explained with words. How do you describe a world where humanity lives inside an artificial dream created by intelligent machines? How do you explain action scenes where the laws of physics appear to break? How do you convince an entire studio to invest millions of dollars into an idea that sounds like a philosophical experiment disguised as a blockbuster? For a time, it seemed that The Matrix would become another lost file inside Hollywood's archives. A brilliant concept that was simply too far ahead of its time. But the creators understood something that many others did not. This film could not be explained. It had to be shown. And this realization led to one of the most important moments in the secret history of The Matrix. To convince the studio that their impossible vision could become reality, they created a detailed visual presentation unlike anything Hollywood executives had seen before. Through storyboards, artwork, and a clear demonstration of the film's unique style, they transformed an abstract idea into something that could finally be imagined. Yet, even after gaining approval, the real battle was only beginning. Because creating The Matrix did not mean simply filming a script. Every frame would require new techniques. Every fight scene would demand a different philosophy of movement. Every visual effect would challenge the limits of what cinema was capable of achieving in 1999. The production was about to enter a territory where failure seemed almost guaranteed. A place where the line between vision and madness became incredibly thin. And perhaps that is what makes this case file so fascinating. The greatest cinematic revolutions are rarely born from certainty. They are born from people willing to pursue ideas that everyone else believes are impossible. If this part of the investigation made you see The Matrix in a different way, leave the word glitch in the comments. A small sign that you are still connected to this hidden transmission. Because the next file reveals the most dangerous phase of all, how the impossible was transformed into reality, and how a group of artists changed the language of cinema forever. Because the next file reveals the most dangerous phase of all, how the impossible was transformed into reality, and how a group of artists changed the language of cinema forever. Once the cameras started rolling, the true experiment began. Creating The Matrix was not just about filming a movie. It was about inventing a reality that had never existed before. The actors were not simply preparing for roles. They entered months of intense physical training, learning martial arts, studying movement, and completely changing the way their bodies reacted on screen. Every punch, every dodge, every moment of stillness inside The Matrix had to communicate the idea that these characters were no longer limited by ordinary human rules. But the physical transformation was only one layer of the hidden process. Behind the scenes, artists, designers, choreographers, and visual effects pioneers were working on something that many believed was impossible. They were trying to capture a moment that existed between time itself, a visual phenomenon that would later become known around the world as bullet time. What most audiences saw as a few seconds of cinematic magic was actually the result of years of experimentation, photography innovation, computer-generated imagery, and an obsession with making the impossible appear real. And that is where this investigation reaches one of its most fascinating discoveries. The Matrix did not simply use technology. It changed the relationship between technology and storytelling. After its release, the shockwave moved through Hollywood like a signal spreading through a network. Action films changed. Visual effects evolved. The language of science fiction was rewritten. Suddenly, every studio wanted to understand the code behind the film that had broken the rules of what audiences believed cinema could do. But perhaps the greatest mystery was never the special effects. It was the reason people continued returning to this story again and again. Because beneath the machines, the action sequences, and the digital landscapes, there was a question that never stopped echoing. Are we truly awake? Or are we simply living inside systems we have never learned to question? Maybe that is why The Matrix survived beyond its era. It became more than a film. It became a cultural symbol, a philosophical mirror, and for many people, a doorway into conversations about consciousness, perception, control, and the hidden structures that shape our reality. And that is the final entry in this classified case file. The Matrix was never just a movie about escaping a machine. It was about the terrifying and beautiful possibility that awakening begins the moment you decide to question everything you once accepted as real. If this investigation opened a new perspective for you, leave the words, "I chose the red pill," in the comments and tell us what part of this hidden history changed the way you see the film. Leave a like to keep these forbidden archives alive and help us uncover more lost stories hidden behind the greatest movies ever created. Subscribe to Shadow Reel and join us as we continue opening the files that Hollywood left buried. The next archive is already waiting to be unlocked, and some secrets were never meant to remain hidden. Get ready to open the secret archive of the movie The Truman Show.